Hey guys, so it's about 9 in the morning right now. I'm sitting at Panera Bread. I got work starting in like 3-ish hours, and I kind of finally decided what I wanted to do with the Alec Wong channel. I feel like this is going to be more of an unscripted place that I can go to just randomly talk. And if you didn't notice, I'm sitting outside of a Panera Bread. It's like really, really unscripted. But I was calculating things for my finances, right? Because that's what adults do and whatever. And I came to the shocking realization that I pretty much threw 6,500, actually closer to $6,600 down the drain over the last 6 months. Not even just including my regular living expenses. Like this 6.5 grand literally went down the drain over the course of the last 6 months from January to June. Currently it is actually August, so I'm calculating things a little bit late. But from January to June, in 6 months, all of my revenue sources made 24.5 grand in profits, right? So this is profits, not total net. This is profits, and because I essentially started from zero, and we have 24,600 in pretty much like total gain starting from zero. Obviously, I did technically start in December, but I had $800 as an emergency fund that I used to start my online business, which, if you didn't know, is pretty much patched at this point. My online business was essentially I would wait for Titi Corporation like Nordstrom or Sephora to like utterly fuck up, right? They released this coupon or like price match deal that I could exploit, and I'd essentially buy beauty products at a discounted rate and resell it on eBay for close to MSRP. Obviously, you can't match MSRP. You'd have to go slightly lower. But that was essentially my strategy for the last 6 months. And it kind of went under the radar until more people started doing it. I noticed a lot of smaller content creators start to copy my strategy. And a lot of these corporations kind of patched a lot of the glitches that they had in their system. And essentially this strategy that I have has effectively been completely phased out per se. I'm still sitting on a bunch of stock that I'm slowly selling off, and that's pretty much what's been making me additional income from the last 2 months for July and August. But until that additional stock fully runs out, I'm searching for this new strategy that I have to look for, or that I'm going to invest my time into. But for the last 6 months, from January to June, I've made gross profit $24,600. Would that be taxed? Who knows? If the IRS is watching, all of this is alleged, because yes, I do have a part-time job. I work at a shoe palace, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to pay tax on that anyways. So we're preparing things for taxes, and it just turns out that 6.5 grand of my own profit just went down the drain. And this video is going to be addressing that and how you can stop yourself from making the same mistake if you're trying to start your own business or trying to manage your finances correctly, I guess. In a way, this is going to be a pretty unscripted, most likely very minimally edited video that I'm just going to post on the Alec Wong channel. And we're going to be doing like monthly recaps or whatever that's going to be similar to this, I guess. So here are these 3 strategies that I use personally to stop myself from losing money in this very same way. It's gotten a lot better over the last 2 months. Again, it was really bad in January to March, but as time went on and I got used to the cash flow, and I got used to like constantly having to think about the future, planning several months ahead for the next big thing, it's gotten a lot better. But essentially, these 3 things have stopped me from just like throwing money down the drain, essentially. So I'm going to be talking about that for a little bit. The first thing that I wanted to address is my lifestyle creep. I feel like a lot of people, especially in our country, the US, deal with this lifestyle creep that keeps us perpetually poor. A good percentage, I don't remember the exact percentage, but it's definitely higher than 30%. A crazy high percentage of Americans still live paycheck to paycheck regardless of their salary bracket, like tax bracket. They still live paycheck to paycheck, and most of the reason for that is because of lifestyle creep. For me especially, When I first started making, I think my first $800 month, I was like, yes, I'm balling. Because prior to that, I had a part-time job tutoring making $70 a week. That was like nothing compared to, boom, $800 a month plopped down in my lap. And then it got even worse to when I was making $2,500 a month. I think that was my first $2,500 a month in March. And that's when things really got at its worst. I think I spent a solid $3,000 that month before I realized, like, hey, this stuff is, my cash flow isn't permanent. It's most likely going to be temporary because it relies on bigger entities perpetually fucking up. And that's the reason, that's like the moment where it clicked with me and I realized, hey, lifestyle creep is real. I noticed myself going out a lot more, spending more money, paying for other people's meals unnecessarily. And a lot of that is the reason why I'm kind of not like necessarily upset, but kind of like, I guess, warning you guys not to make the same mistake, is that lifestyle creep is a real thing. No, you don't need nice designer clothing. Like, even heck me, I think my sense of dress hasn't necessarily changed from December or January. I still wear pants and a plain white t-shirt. You can buy these in bulk. They're like $3 a shirt if you buy them in packs. But essentially, lifestyle creep is very real. I found myself spending money on a lot of unnecessary things, as well as spending money on necessary things. And it just made my expenses a lot higher than it was supposed to be. Second, I have to make sure to celebrate the small wins to avoid burnout. If you're in this perpetual, it's kind of counterintuitive in my opinion. Don't like overspend, but don't underspend as well. Because if you continuously underspend and live at your bare minimum means, you're gonna slowly get demotivated. You're gonna burn out because you're not really seeing any results from the things that you do, except for the fact that your bank account balance is going up. And not to say that that's not results, but normally, if you're a visual person, you need to actually feel the difference, not just like see the difference. You're gonna be working, I put in like 40 hours a week on my online business when it was doing well at its peak. And I was obviously suffering from massive lifestyle creep. But the problem is, right, if you don't see any lifestyle creep, it doesn't matter if you're making 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures. If you're still living like you have a part-time job, yes, you're like, it's like a long-term thing, but it prevents your mental from fatiguing. One thing that I learned, one actual positive thing that I learned from playing video games is that human psyche, right? Positive results tend to compound, whereas negative results tend to compound as well, right? So if you're making small incremental wins, your team's mentality, like the mental of the players who you're playing with, also tends to snowball in a positive direction. Whereas if you're making small losses, right? One death here, one death there, that's like, one death doesn't really impact the game as much unless it's like really late into it. But here, one death there, it like slowly starts to compound until you get demoralized and you're like, why am I even doing this anymore, right? So that's kind of what I'm trying to say when I'm talking about celebrating the small wins. Because the thing about celebrating wins is that you don't have to go like ball out and buy bottle service, right? I can't even drink, so that doesn't apply to me. But like, you don't have to like go to the club, buy bottle service. Might as well just like treat yourself out to like decent dinner, go to like Cheesecake Factory or some stuff, celebrate it, and be like, yeah, I can pay for this using my own money, right? That's my definition of celebrating the small wins. And the reason why I feel like, again, that's so important is because it reminds you about the things that you're actively striving to work for and that you're trying to improve for. So, second tip that I have is celebrating the small wins. The third thing that I have stored as like tip is more of a preservation strategy than an actual gain strategy, is learn the difference between offensive and defensive investment strategies. This is a little bit more nuanced because things like investment strategies can vary based on your philosophy. For example, I feel like Warren Buffett has a very, very defensive investment strategy where he didn't necessarily make a bunch of his money off stocks in his early years, but in his late years, he made like crap ton of money off the stock market, right? That's literally what he's known for. So the stock market, in my opinion, unless you're like straight up gambling, like Wall Street bets level gambling, that's considered a defensive investment, simply because of the fact that, like, pretty much passive, unless you're like day trading or whatever, that's we consider that like passive investment, whatever you want to call it, because you essentially, as long as you don't check it and you have your money in like an index fund or whatever, right? ETF, S&P 500, right? Don't check it for like 5 years, boom, it's guaranteed to increase. It might not increase, like won't go higher than a 10% yearly return, but as long as you just don't look at it, don't touch it, it should hypothetically increase over the long term. It's like a defensive, more passive type of investment. It's not gonna make you rich, but if you're rich and you wanna stay rich, it's gonna do you a lot of good. On the other hand, like a more offensive type of investing is like just educating yourself, getting things like a plumber's license, or like do research about like products that are hot. If you want to, like, I don't personally drop ship, but if I were to drop ship, I know of like certain paid services that you could use to find like hot products that are selling like really well at this given time period. That's what I would consider to be an aggressive investment, because yes, the risk is higher. Like, you could lose that money that you pay for that certain service, but on the other hand, your return is a lot, like, it's potentially higher but not guaranteed. Like, again, you could do like absolute crazy things with drop shipping. Like, we've seen like crazy stories of people going from like zero to like $1 million in like a month doing drop shipping. But that's like a more aggressive approach. And me personally, that's kind of the phase that I'm in right now, is like this investment approach, simply because of the fact that I know I'm not shit, right? Like, currently, I'd say my net worth sits comfortably at about 30 grand if you count my car and my bank account balance together. But realistically, that's not hot shit, right? 1 semester or 1 year's tuition, as well as 1 year's dorming at UC Riverside, the college that I go to, quite literally wipes out my entire net worth in a year. So like, sitting around 30 grand, quite honestly, ain't shit, right? But the is like, that's the mentality that you have to kind of in order to like know your position, right? A lot of people have this issue where they don't know their position, and I kind of, ever since I started, I've gotten better at like realizing weaknesses and what strengths I have to play to from my given position. I guess another pretty good thing that playing video games has taught me is that when you're losing, there's a certain way you have to play in order to best effectively switch the tides, turn the tables of the game. And when you're winning, there's a certain way you have to play in order to make it so that the enemy isn't able to turn the tables and you lose the game from a winning position, right? So just knowing what position you're in at any given time is really important, because it tells you what type of strategy you need to employ in order to increase your chances of, winning the game, right? Being financially free, right? And I guess that's the third strategy that I really have. Again, I lost like an instrumentable amount of money, like relatively speaking, right? If I had this extra 6,500, like I'd have so much, like I'd be so much more comfortable with myself. So the fact that I lost this amount of money is kind of insane to me, simply because of the fact that it was completely preventable. It's not like some necessary like expense that I could have or should have used. Like, I can't justify this amount of money that I've lost to myself. And it's just like, I don't want anyone else to make the same mistake as me. Like, basically, like losing 30% of your like potential profit to lifestyle creep and to poor like decision making. It's just like kind of annoying looking back at it, because I should have, like, yes, I should have known a lot better, but at the same time, like, I'm probably still as stupid now as I was back then. And I can see myself making like a similar mistake even now. It's just like, I guess now that I'm more conscious of it, the chances of it happening again are like comparatively less. But hopefully like this video helps you as much as it helps me realize the mistake that I made, and just don't repeat it, please. Don't fall victim to lifestyle creep. Be sure to like try your best to not burn out. I mean, easier said than done, right? But just celebrate the small wins to avoid your mental fatiguing, and learn the difference between passive and active investments. Just educate yourself. That's like the best form of active investment, simply because it gives you a lot more potential. Like, go out there, get your plumber's license, get your real estate like certification, whatever, right? That's kind of what I'm doing right now with college, right? I would consider college to be an active investment. How good is it is up for debates. How good of an active investment, again, up for debates. People have varying opinions about what they think of college, but realistically, like, yeah, educating yourself is a pretty good way to go in terms of an offensive investment to increase your yearly salary or whatever, to get that like high paying job that you've always wanted. But yeah, thanks for watching, and this is Alec Wong, I guess unscripted.